Reading mainstream media commentary about the Thunderbolts is like getting gaslit by Mr. Bean. Thunderbolts flies to a solid $76 million opening. Eyes huge, $175 million opening. Thunderbolts proves to be a hit at the box office. Opening weekend rallies Marvel fans. It strikes box office gold. It's official. It was a massive bomb. The media in Hollywood seem to have a tactic to save themselves. Lie to everybody. They seem to think they're still living in pre-internet or YouTube times, where people would go and see a movie because everybody was seeing the movie. So all we have to do to make something a hit is tell you it's the #1 thing and you've got to go and see it. I wouldn't want to miss out on the Thunderbolts because otherwise what else would I have to talk about with my friends? That may have worked back in the day where there was a few TV shows and so everyone shared a sort of solid culture. Now though, with so many streaming services, so many channels, so many foreign entertainment channels, nobody feels the need to keep up with whatever the latest social trend is. The days of people just doing something because everybody else is doing it is over. But if you're in a kind of a virtue signaling bubble,
I really wish that we could get it to you guys, but we need to stand on the right side of history.
you seem to still think it works. You go along with what the crowd does, so surely everyone else does. We better lie and tell them this is what the crowd's doing. There's tactics like that where it's leaving Marvel and mainstream media with absolutely no idea how they can turn this around. They know that Marvel is doomed and it's losing hundreds of millions of dollars. They have absolutely no idea where they go next. Marvel has had too many flops back to back for even Variety to say this isn't a problem anymore. The Marvels was the lowest grossing MCU movie, and the Thunderbolts' only claim to fame is that it doubled the MCU's biggest bomb ever. Not that that helps with it being the second lowest earning MCU film of all time. Now, there are many theories as to why Marvel has failed, and which one you personally believe probably biases towards what you value in the movie industry, rather than there being a sort of definitive answer of sorts. But one of the common ones is just heroic indifference, general fatigue around superheroes, or even, quite frankly, movies in general. As society declines and people lose basic ability to behave like civilized adults, being stuck in a room with them, having an inferior experience to the one you could have had at home anyway, isn't really a big draw to get people to go to the cinema, let alone when the movies are about depression. But if you do think that superhero fatigue is the reason, well, I mean, the media have said that Captain America Brave New World attempted to recreate their best movies. This was them trying to refresh the superhero genre. At least that's their story, and they're gonna stick with it. Thinking that you've achieved that just because you've made the hero your preferred identity category, it's not the strongest of reasons for a reboot, is it really? At the box office, well, that backed that up. Captain America Brave New World just tied the Eternals, which isn't great. When the best quote Paul Tassi can put out about something is, it's not really great, is it? You know you're in trouble. But all of this does raise an interesting question, because there's cope everywhere. They've tried every tactic to change this around. I mean, they insulted the audience, and then when that didn't work, they insulted them again.
You're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
The Star Wars fan base really seems to be the most kind of toxic.
They called them every slur under the sun, and somehow still didn't get money from them. If you can shame people and then say that you're only a moral person if you actively increase my bank balance, it seemed like a surefire tactic to monetary success. After all, it works inside Hollywood, so why not outside? And it's that kind of level of thinking, that kind of delusion, and just sheer inability to understand the world from somebody else's perspective. Why Hollywood has no idea where to go next. It's not just the media which are now saying, actually, there's a problem in Hollywood. There has been a sudden spate of the cast and crew going, actually, I'm kind of fed up with this. Dakota Johnson said that Hollywood is in a bit of a mess right now. It's hard when creative decisions are made by people who don't even watch movies or know anything about them. Now, Dakota Johnson, she knows a surefire hit when she sees one.
I know that when you see Madam Web, you're gonna love it. In fact, I think you're gonna see it twice.
And I did, because the first time I watched it, I wet myself laughing. So I had to go back and rewatch it after I'd cleaned myself up. But that is what tends to be occurring a lot. Hollywood is just full of people that don't even like movies. And when something does well, studios want to keep going, so they remake those things, but humans don't want that. I don't know about that one. How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake is doing really well at the box office. So is Lilo and Stitch. I would say it's more that the people making the movies don't know how to do good sequels. I say the audience wants fresh. They want to feel new things, experience new things. But that's just not what they're getting from Hollywood right now, is it? That's always what Hollywood should be. Yeah, you can have big blockbusters that may be sequels to already established IPs. You're also supposed to have smaller budget, kind of more experimental things that test out new original ideas, and then when one of those hits, well, then you make a bigger budget sequel of it. This is how you start franchises. It's kind of skipped all that. The same way with streaming, they got rid of pilot series. Now we've got rid of cheaper, new exploratory movie ideas, which actually seems to be a running trend because they've done the same thing with actors. Now we have the same crop of actors that we had when I was a kid, even for the women playing the TNA characters. New and fresh doesn't seem to be Hollywood's strong point. But then again, when you don't hire the best people, I can understand why you'd struggle to find new talent. I do find it funny though when she said, I mean, it's hard when creative decisions are made by people that don't even really watch the content or know anything about it. It's actually a very similar situation when Pedro Pascal told Dakota to join adult-orientated websites. It's like, cheers mate, but I don't really think that's your area.
I am a lazy 50-year-old bougie.
I want very much to live on the right side of history.
The thing is, though, Dakota isn't the only actor which seems to be disillusioned by Hollywood at the moment. Bryce Dallas said, I've never been shocked by a flop like Argyle and Lady in the Water. You can always see it coming when you're making it. And that's strange. Wouldn't you think you could do something about it? If when you're making a movie like this is ass, change it then. Unless you're just sitting there in your chair watching everybody fail, knowing it's going to fail. You're like, oh, these people are in for a shock in 6 months' time. She even kind of admits to that herself. I've never been shocked when something doesn't work, but I'm just an actor. You're there to serve a director's vision. Look, it may be ass. I knew it was ass, but that guy was deluded over there. I couldn't save him. It's not really my job to tell him he has no idea what he's doing. If a movie doesn't turn out the way you envisioned, you can barely feel disappointed because it's not yours. You're not the person who's building the thing. I mean, if you said something to them and then they ignored you, that's probably fair enough. But I can't help thinking that this is quite a widespread attitude in Hollywood, that everyone is standing there watching these things burn to the ground, thinking, it's not my job, bro, that's above my pay grade. It's essentially more than my job's worth to tell people they have no idea what they're doing, because if I tell them, well, Hollywood is a very, brown-nosing kind of situation. People get where they are because they know exactly who to suck up to. Even in Apple's TV series, The Studio, which is a show basically of Hollywood people describing what they think the problem in Hollywood is, they agree. The series starts with a guy getting a promotion because he stitched up his friends and sucked up to the correct boss. So yeah, not having that, this is more than my job's worth, and trying to save the industry could well get you fired, so they shut up. There's an interesting part of that in psychology, though, where they've tested herd behavior in humans. There was a study where a load of people sat in a room, but all of them were actors except for one guy who was the stooge and had no idea what was happening. Then they started to pump smoke into the room as if the building was on fire to see what he did. He didn't do anything. Nobody else responded to the smoke, and so he stayed in that room thinking the building was on fire because nobody else did anything, nobody else panicked. There's also been other studies where you can actually get somebody to say the wrong answer just because everyone before them said the obviously wrong answer and they just went along with it.
The subject denies the evidence of his own eyes and yields to group influence.
They must be right. There are 4 of them and 1 of me.
One.
That could actually be one of the explanations of why Hollywood can't course correct. Because everyone is sitting there watching the ship sink, and all of them disagree with the direction of where it's going, but nobody wants to be the one that isn't there virtue signaling to raise their head above the parapet. Get fired.
In this case, the subject knows he is right, but goes along to avoid the discomfort of disagreeing with the group.
Scarlett Johansson even wanted to have her executive producer credit removed from Thunderbolts. She's like, well, you know, some films my character was engaged more than others. But in other films, the cast was so enormous, you just kind of felt like a plot device. It's just not engaging to do as an actor. It's the opening day of a movie that basically you're the 7th Thunderbolt in, said David Harbour. You're an executive producer. Congratulations. No, I wanted it removed, actually. I think anyone would mind a credit on a movie. I mean, it's something to add on the CV, whether you're part of it or not. Unless you know it's ass. Second worst performing one ever. Probably not something you want your name attached to. Another case of, yeah, actually, I knew that was a sinking ship. I wanted nothing to do with it. Thanks for reminding everyone that I did.
The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. When that unanimity is punctured, the group's power is greatly reduced.
And even the successful shows, David Harbour, once again, when Stranger Things just kept going on and on. Now in its 5th season, he's like, how much How much more story is there? When I started, I loved it so much. Buddies of mine who'd done TV for years said, by season 3 or 4, you'll be running. I was like, never. But then I'm like, actually, how much is there? Can I leave? I just want to take a risk. I want to do something that I haven't done before because it's 10 years later. And admittedly, if you're doing a season of 22 episodes a year for 10 years, I can understand why you're bored. If you're doing 8 episodes every couple of years, you've essentially done a season and a half in a decade. You're like, whoa, this character's boring. I actually think that doesn't say so much about the length of time you're doing it. If you're doing the same beats in a story for something with so few episodes, that actually says more about the writing, the poor quality of the writing, and the fact that they keep repeating your same story arc because they don't have another story they can give you. They can't think of a new original story to give you, and so you just feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, which is basically Stranger Things. Every season is exactly the same as the previous one. The real shock ending of Stranger Things will just be when they find out they're in a time loop. But the media, they can't come up with stories about how everything's fine anymore because it's too obvious that it isn't. The actors, they've realized they can't keep attacking the audience. That doesn't seem to work. And if we can't blame the audience, well, it's gotta be our problem. But we can't blame me, so instead I'm gonna say it's more than my job's worth. I know I'm not happy doing this stuff, but I'm gonna try and blame it on the higher-ups. And then Variety comes along and goes, is there any way they can fix this? Look, Marvel did try and reboot itself with the Thunderbolts, but if this is the second coming of Marvel, it might need to be rebooted again, which is what essentially Marvel Doomsday and Secret Wars 4. The problem with that is, they've hired so many really expensive actors to be in it, that what will likely happen is, I do think that Robert Downey Jr. would have gotten everyone back. I don't think all the other people are even necessary. I think you essentially top out on pull with Robert Downey Jr. anyway. But they do add a whole of extra cost. So now, sure, a lot of people come back, increase box office at over $1 billion, great. Still not making any money though, because your budget's too high. And the moment all of those actors leave, well, that's not going to continue into future movies. So you've just made expensive losses again. You haven't saved the MCU. Even if you've rebooted it, you won't magically make it profitable. But Marvel's calculus has changed, says Sean. We're not in a new era where every Marvel movie is going to hit $1 billion. And that should be fine. Previously, it hit $31 billion across 36 movies. Before 2020, 19 out of 22 films cracked $500 million. But since that time, just 6 out of 13 have got over $500 million. We've already lowered the target by half, and still only half the movies are hitting that. Now, the thing is, $500 million for a movie is actually decent. There is no reason you shouldn't be able to profit off $500 million. Except, it is hard when creative decisions are made by a committee of people who don't watch movies or know anything about them. Or worse, know anything about business. It seems that Hollywood throughout all its time has only been successful because it was so profitable they basically couldn't miss. They could run that place with all the ignorance, all the waste, all the utter incompetence that they currently possess, and they just made so much money it didn't matter. Sure, you could pay an actor $20 million for a movie. You're making so much money, it doesn't matter that you're clearly overpaying them more than they're worth. It doesn't matter you got all this waste, all the celebrity culture. They have to go around brown-nosing everyone and treating them like gods. Everyone's got an entourage and thinks they're really important. It's the same as the tech industry. It became bloated and just full of waste to the point where Twitter had wine on tap just because it made so much money. Nobody needed to think about how to run it profitably, leanly, like a normal business.
Day in my life as a Twitter employee. So I started my morning off with an iced matcha from the pit. What a blessing. I had a meeting, got ready for lunch. Look how delicious this food looks. Played some foosball with my friends to kind of unwind a bit. Had a couple more meetings in the afternoon. And then before leaving for the day, had some red wine that's on tap.
And Hollywood doesn't ever seem to have been treated like a business. The problem is now they are running on slimmer margins, and yes, making better movies is something they should definitely do. But you also have to bear in mind the realism of just, this is what we're doing now? We need to live within our means. We need to lower our budgets because we have no other choice. Trying to reclaim the glory days when the glory days don't exist anymore is ridiculous. Your cinema experience, no matter how much Tom Cruise goes out and preaches about how everything needs to be seen in the cinema, if people aren't going, you're not going to change that. You can't turn back time. Now, they do say that the problem with Thunderbolts is it had enthusiastic word of mouth rather than poor reviews of everything else, but this is just survivorship bias. The only people left watching the movies like them. Everyone else gave up a long time ago. At this point, if you're still going to watch all of them, you're either a glutton for punishment or like bad content. It's the same people that are going to watch Ironheart. I do find it funny that they blamed audience habits and tastes and then gone, actually, it's because kid-friendly films are doing really well. It's not a change in taste. They haven't aged backwards. Now, they know that these things aren't surefire hits anymore, but it always makes me laugh with, like, it's intentionally slowing down to focus on quality over quantity. Kind of admitting that the movies they were pumping out were ass, but just taking more time to do something doesn't make it better. You actually need to be talented to make it in the first place. And this is the one thing Hollywood can't do. All of the actors can come out and go, I knew it was ass from the start. It's his fault. But they won't tell him, so he doesn't know. And the people at the top of Hollywood will never go, you know what? You know why I think Hollywood's burning to the ground? It's me. I need to be fired. They are never going to blame themselves. So if the people at the top, if it's the directors, the creatives, the CEOs, if they are burning the industry down, if no one's willing to grass them up, how will that ever change?
Ash's experiment is a classic. It reveals how people will deny what they see and submit to group pressure. It allows us not only to observe conformity, but to study the conditions that increase or reduce its occurrence.
Because at the moment, their tactic, rather than changing the people involved, is just to double down on ever bigger, more expensive movies with bigger IPs. Let's get Robert Downey Jr. back, bringing the X-Men back. Sinners work, so maybe Black Panther will save us. Now, the article does bring up the costs of things, although it acts as if, the movie budgets are expensive, and of course they have to be. Belt tightening is getting harder because costs are increasing. From actors' pay to visual effects to catering. You mean those optional costs? You don't have to cater for your movie. They can do what normal people do and bring their own food to work. They could pay for the catering when they're there. You know, how people run a business. Actors' pay does not need to increase. They get paid tons of money as it is. If you stopped hiring union workers, you wouldn't have to pay their inflated costs. They basically blackmailed you into by threatening to crush their own industry. It was very smart.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And as far as visual effects are concerned, you could just do movies that use less visual effects. Rather than CGIing clothes onto superheroes or hair, just make them grow their own hair and wear clothes. Save a lot of money there. It says that their tactic is to turn these movies into can't miss events, but you can miss them. You're just not that big of a cultural institution anymore, and rather than trying to go back to being it, just accept your position in life. This is where you are now. Adapt. Evolve. Become a leaner, actual proper business. Marvel reined in spending for Thunderbolts and made it only $180 million with $100 million marketing, and that's reining it in. Rather than setting a budget and just spending a fortune in marketing it, most of which nobody cares about. Have you ever driven past a bus stop with a movie poster on it and thought, I wasn't going to watch Ballerina before, but now I've seen it on a bus stop, I have to go? That's changed my mind completely. What they should have done is estimated what they thought they were going to make in the box office, reverse engineer that down to the money that they're going to take in, and from that, work out what they can spend on it to make a decent profit. You know, how businesses work. Reverse engineering budgets, though, seems to be beyond the bean counters at Marvel who think they're living in a delusional world where they can just change people's perceptions and bend them to their will. That's why they decided it needed to make $425 million. Yeah, it has to make this. We're going to manifest it. Marvel is unique in that it isn't encumbered as rivals by profit or losses on single films, but it should be. Yeah, you could have a big expensive movie that will probably make a loss on it, but it's there to lead people into the franchise. I get that, but that is where the quality comes in to keep people sticking around. And how to fix that has been talked about a lot, and it's not really what I'm focusing on here. This is more a question of corporate culture. And Disney's corporate culture seems to be, we can recoup costs of Disney Plus through other revenue streams like merchandising, theme parks, and cruises. Yeah, we can float our failing business with money from our successful ones. But that successful one relies on the quality of your losing one. And if you're destroying and harming and damaging the IPs through bad quality entertainment, you are damaging the merchandise business and theme park business. Nostalgia doesn't work forever, because even if it works for the current generation, forever, their kids won't be into it because you haven't given them new content to get them into it. Which means you better hope that those live-action adaptations keep doing well. But Disney's strategy is, we're going to make the Thunderbolts return in Avengers Doomsday because they absolutely loved the film to the point that it flopped, so we're going to have to use them again, obviously. Disney is making the same problem with the Thunderbolts that they have with their executives. They can fail, they just bring them back. They keep giving them work rather than fixing the problem. Now, I understand that no one is ever going to go, I'm the problem in this company, I need to go. But somebody needs to make that decision. It should probably be the CEO, but Disney, the CEO is the problem as well. And while underneath them, it seems like all the actors, lots of the people in the studio, they know the problems there. They know when they're working on the stuff that it's awful. But Hollywood seems to have made itself an industry of yes men. I'm just going to keep my head down and keep the money coming in. So at this point, even if you got rid of the executives, there's no one there to fix it. So you fired the executive tomorrow, who are you going to replace him with? Well, it would be someone lower in the pipeline to promote. And that person has also worked on all of these movies. They would have been there at all of the failures, agreeing with all of the failures, not saying you're a problem and you need to go. And so you're kind of replacing a problem with just a new, younger problem. And it seems like at this point, what Disney needs, and Hollywood in in general is likely the people they've gotten rid of. If there was somebody in the industry who's going, this film's awful, and then you fired them for that, get them back in and promote them. If there's anyone at the company who's like, we can't spend this on catering, these people aren't important enough, why can't they bring their own food? Promote them. It's not just the quality of the movies in Hollywood that need to change, it is the fundamental aspect of how they think of themselves as an industry, as a business. One thing that you found in the studio is so few, they were all like, oh, we're creative artists, rather than running a business where profit matters, where keeping things lean matter, where no, actually, just because your union wants us to give you this money, we're not going to do it. No, we haven't been making any money. No. It is a strange course of affairs, when at this point, I would generally go, you know, Dakota Johnson seems to know more about running Hollywood as a business than the CEOs of the company. She knew Madam Web was a flop, and through the PR marketing campaign, came out looking the best from it.
The winner for Best Picture at the Oscars will be...
Oppenheimer?
I wasn't expecting that answer, love.
That's incorrect. It's actually Madam Web.
Okay.
It's going to be a Madam Web sweep, I think.
Okay, that will also piss people off.
At this point, Hollywood is in such a problem with their entire pipeline of people that there is no one to replace the top people at the top. It might as well make Dakota Johnson CEO of Disney. Probably stands a better chance of fixing the company than anyone else in line for the job. If we're going to have Disney make movies by committee anyway, let's have them made by a committee of really pissed off actors and actresses. Because I think the only people that could ever fix this are people who are absolutely done with the current state of affairs. Disney, rehire the last person you fired that hated how you were running the company. Just make them CEO. It couldn't be any worse. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like if you like the video, subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.